This episode is sponsored by Launch. Are you an insurance agent that is tired of quoting business to try and find a better premium to win new deals? Are you looking for a way to differentiate and stand out from your competition? Well, look no further than Launch. Launch is an industry-leading software platform that gives you pre-built assessments that you can walk through with your prospect. Launch automatically calculates your prospect's risk score, and this allows you to show your prospect the areas you can fix to negotiate better premium and coverage with underwriters. Offer more value to your clients, turn missed sales into closed business, and most of all, become a better advisor to your clients. Visit getlaunch.io today to get more information on how you can use Launch to win more BORs starting right now. That's getlaunch.io to learn more.
Welcome to the Getting Past the Premium podcast, where we focus on breaking down risk management problems bit by bit until we find a solution. If you would like to discuss anything you hear on GPP with us, please reach out using the links in the description. Enjoy today's episode.
All right, Mick, welcome to the show. Excited we finally got it on the calendar, right?
Yeah, man, it's been about 3 months of me having to reschedule, and I said, I'm not doing that to Elliot and Ryan anymore. We're going to make this happen. So today is the day. So apologies, but excited all at the same time.
Well, exactly. We just had to make the audience wait for this epic episode a little bit longer, right?
There we go.
So I'm guessing most of the people listening probably have seen you on different in different capacities on social media and you know, doing what you do from a promotion, I guess, perspective, education perspective. But give everybody your background, who you are, what Premier Strategy Box does for clients, and then we'll kind of jump into some of the things that we want to go deeper on.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Like, I started my career literally 20 years ago now. I don't feel old every day, except when I say I've been in this industry for 20 years. But fresh out of college, first day after graduation, I worked for a nationwide insurance agency owner who had aspirations to be the biggest, largest nationwide agent in the planet. And I always tell people my first day, he gives me his goals, his aspirations, and I'm like, great, how are you going to do this? And he looked at me square in the eye and said, that is why I hired you. You better go figure this out. He said it in a much different way. That was the clean version. And that's what I did. We figured it out. So in 5 years, he went from being a very, very, very good agent to being the number one agency in the country for nationwide insurance. And he's actually in the Nationwide Hall of Fame now. But wow. You know how it goes, right? Like you work for someone, you work with someone, and you're like, I can do that myself, right? Because he was going on all these amazing trips, right? He was going to Banff, Canada, to Rome, to Switzerland, to Atlantis. And then he's sending me on the trips to like Atlanta, right? And I don't know if you guys know this, but Atlantis and Atlanta are not the same thing.
They're different?
It's slightly different, I would say, yeah.
They're just a little bit different. Yeah. So I said, I want to do this for myself. So I started my own agency from scratch. No mergers, no acquisitions, just really focused on the right sales processes, the relationship processes, and then what I call the RevOps processes post-sale. And my agency went from nothing to 3.2 million of revenue in 3 years. The crazy thing, Elliot and Ryan, I swore everybody was doing that because that was all that I knew, right? Like I helped a nationwide agency grow to be the biggest, baddest thing out there. My agency, I didn't think I was doing anything different than the person next door to me was doing as well. It wasn't until a broker approached me to acquire me that I said, oh, this is different. And I ended up selling the agency, went to head up a large MGA down in South Florida, inherited about 50 million of revenue, grew that to 70 million of revenue in 4 years. And at that point I said, I want to help my peers, my retail agency partners do this because growth, I will never say growth is easy, but it doesn't have to be hard. When you have the right focus, when you have the right processes and the right KPIs that you're measuring, growth becomes the byproduct of all the work that you do. And that's what we do at Premier Strategy Box is we help with growth strategies, revenue generating strategies, sales development, sales coaching, and KPI analytics.
That's awesome. So you glossed over this piece real quick, but let's go back to 0 to 3.2 million in 3 years. So that's, if my math is correct, almost 1.1 million on average of growth in a given year.
And what if I told you I didn't write my first policy until 5 months into it?
So 2.5 years, 3.2 million. So break that down just a little bit though. What do you attribute to going from scratch to 3.2 million in 3 years? Is there anything you point to? Is it just good systems? Or break that down a little bit.
So the first thing was, I realized day one, I was a business owner, not an insurance agency owner. And there's a huge difference, right? Because when you're a business owner, you're focused purely on bottom line, on growth strategies, and on your people, right? Agency owners tend to focus on things like management systems and data and integrations. And I'm not saying that that's not important. It truly is. But as the CEO of a company, you should have people that worry about those things. Like, I didn't worry about those items. I worried about forecasting revenue, forecasting growth, and making sure that my people were the best people and that I was serving them the right way as a leader. So that was first and foremost. And then when we talk about how did I do it, how did I grow, like, we really honed in on our ideal client. So we didn't accept low-hanging fruit. If I wanted our average commission, our average revenue to be 15,000, that's what we focused on. So we focused on businesses that were going to bring in 15,000 of revenue minimum, right? And we really dialed in on who they were, how we were going to sell to them, and then more importantly, how are we going to keep them and get referrals from them.
So I think I was hoping you'd go there, actually, because I think that is the first step that a lot of agencies miss is truly identifying what that ideal client is. What else went into that? Like, describe what your ideal client was at that time. You mentioned the revenue that you wanted to average, but what else went into that?
So here's the crazy deal. So as an agency, we had an ideal client, and then I had my own specific ideal client because I was a producer as well too. So for the agency, minimum 15,000 of revenue, first and foremost. You had to have a bank loan, because to me, if the bank found you fiduciary responsible, I didn't have to, right? And that loan could be property, equipment, vehicles, whatever. I just wanted to make sure you had a bank loan that let me know you paid your bills, because 15,000 of revenue, you guys know what those premiums are, right? I wasn't trying. I wasn't trying to write someone today and then they cancel in 30 days, right? So I wasn't trying to do that. And then you had to have a website, because if you write commercial, you know what that's like, right? Having a website. And then you had to have 20 plus employees. So that was how you got in the door for our agency. And then each of my producers had their own niche market that had to fit that same criteria. So for me personally, I wrote franchise restaurants. So I wrote regional franchise restaurants. So, you had to have at least 4 locations for me to qualify you. You had to have a need for some type of safety protocol, whether that's a safety manual, a safety program, something that I could deliver value for outside of just offering you an insurance policy. So that's what really went into my personal ideal client.
No, I think that makes total sense. I'm glad you broke that down. Like, it doesn't have to be complex, right? And I think that's what a lot of people feel like it is. How did you approach or deal with, say that you've got producers then that don't want to turn away business, right? So they're like, Mick, man, I got this client. It's about 7,000 in revenue. It's a little bit outside of my target market, but they're going to grow and they're a good, solid client. And, I want to write them. How did you guys approach that perspective?
Nope, that's great. Elliot, I appreciate you wanting to write that. I appreciate you wanting to write it so much. I'm going to let you write it, Elliot, but you're not getting paid on it, right? That's going to be a house account. And if that account does get to the threshold, at that point, we'll pay you. Now, I might give you a little bit of a bonus for writing it, but I really need you focused on your ideal client. And I know it's real easy to get that in the door right now, but trust me, the servicing of that account, the grooming of that account, it's not going to be worth it the way that we operate and do business. So again, you can write it, but you're not going to get paid.
Gotcha. I think that makes a ton of sense, right?
And again, for an insurance agency owner, it's hard to have that conversation with the producer, right? But when you're a business owner and you get it, right? Because I know how great your agency is. You understand what the servicing is like on certain accounts. And sometimes the ROI just isn't there. And that's what I wanted my producers to understand. Like, it's not about getting them in the door. It's about taking care of them for the lifetime value of that account.
Total lifetime value, Ryan. That's something we talk about a lot.
Yeah, I love hearing it.
How did you look at that? How did you look at that, Mick? I mean, is that something that you were, well, so let me take a step back. I don't think that our industry looks at that enough at all, right? So lifetime value for everybody listening is think about your average client size and think about how long you typically have that client as a client on average. So if that's a, $5,000 revenue client, you typically have them for 5 years. That's over the life of that client, they're going to generate $25,000 of revenue for your firm. So that's a different perspective to think about how many resources, how many, how do you bring that client into the firm? It's different when you look at it as a $25,000 client versus 5 or whatever the numbers end up being. So break down maybe how you looked at that piece when you were, bringing on clients and how you went after clients and business development and all that, Mick.
No, I mean, wholeheartedly, you broke it down beautifully because that's exactly what I did. Again, I wasn't trying to be an insurance agency owner. I was trying to run a business. I was trying to run a multi-million-dollar income business, not premium business. So in order to do that, when we talk about KPIs, one of my major KPIs to this day is customer lifetime value, because now I can forecast, right? I can totally forecast just the way that you broke it down. So if I know that this customer is going to be with me for 7 years, right? And in your math, at $5,000, that's $35,000. So now I know in 7 years what it takes to really secure that. So I know where my break evens are, where my profit margins are, right? It's going to help me understand my revenue per account manager, my revenue per producer. Again, all the things that we think about, but we really don't put pen to paper or put it in a spreadsheet or calculator or graph or whatever sophisticated forecasting system you have. Like, to me, that's very, very, very important, because it's not about necessarily the dollar amount for that client, right? It's about the profit margin that they're giving you. And again, as a business owner, you guys know, like, there's technology to support clients. There's people resources to support clients. So it's not just the $5,000 you get year one is not pure profit, especially when you're doing commission splits and all that as well too.
Oh, totally.
So, Mick, would you mind explaining a little bit about your sales process that you used? You had this target market identified. Describe the sales funnel for me.
Yeah, so that's a really good question, and I love to dive into that. So, my sales process starts with identifying your ideal client, which we've done a really good job of talking about, right? So you have to make sure that they're an ideal client. And then how do you get in front of them, right? So we teach and taught how to prospect the right way. So when we're talking about buying lead lists or X dates or joining associations, going to networking events, whatever, when you know your ideal client, get in front of them however you can. And then my sales process starts with getting an appointment, and we're going to uncover pain like nobody's business, because I need to make sure that pain exists, or show you that pain exists, even if you don't feel it, to make sure that there's a need and that there's a fit. Because the worst thing that we can do as salespeople is become transactionalists. And if we're not uncovering pain, if we're not providing solutions to pain, all we are a transaction. And being a transaction, we've got to have the lowest price, right? And that's not who we are as advisors, as professionals. So our sales process starts with identifying our ideal client. When you know your ideal client, you should know the goals, the challenges, the pain that they have anyway. And then in that first meeting, it's all about uncovering pain and showing pain, right? And then we get into what's called our pre-close. So, Elliot, if I can solve your pain points at a reasonable price and within your budget, will you do business with me? I'm asking that question before I start looking at policies, looking to determine if I'm going to AOR this or if I've got to quote this or whatever it is. I need to make sure that you have pain and that if I solve that pain, you're willing to do business with me. And if you say yes, now I'm getting into what we call permission to move forward, which is, all right, let me explain what doing business with us is like, right? There's going to be a little bit of homework on your end, a lot of homework on my end. I'm going to need to look at your policies. At some point, we're going to need to bring loss control into this. There might be some inspections required, but that's what we call our permission to move forward, which is explaining the rules of engagement. And then after that, it's just your close, right? So our sales process is 6 steps that I really just put into 4, but it's identify your ideal client, uncover pain, do your pre-close, get your permission to move forward, build your proposal the right way. So don't give out carrier templates and carrier proposals, and then go in for the final close.
Yeah, that's awesome. So like, can you shine some light into, you know, how that worked for you guys in terms of, I'm asking, normally I couldn't ask this question, Mick, because nobody tracks any of this stuff. I feel like you've got a great handle on it though. Like what walk us through a couple of the ratios going through there. Like what was an important step that you had to get over? And if you knew you did that, then it was a walk in the park. Like walk us through the ratios a little bit.
Yeah, so absolutely. So let's say that we identified 10 people that were our ideal client. 6 out of those 10, we knew that we were going to uncover pain and do the pre-close, meaning we discovered that pain existed and we were going to ask the question, if I'm able to solve your pain points at a reasonable price and within your budget, will you do business with me? 60% of the time, that was a yes, right? So out of that 60% that moved forward with us, our agency close ratio was 83%. The only way that we did not win an account is if we could not get a reasonable price within their budget. And sometimes that happens, right? Like sometimes you're going to go into a $400,000 account and the best thing that you can do, because you can't AOR it, because believe it or not, you can't AOR every policy. I don't want people to think that that's true, because I know a lot of folks talk about AOR and BOR, but carriers nowadays, you can't just do that, right? So if they're paying $400,000, I don't care how great of a salesperson I am. If my best price is $500,000, I'm not winning that account, right? But 83% of the time, we close deals if they said they would do business with us if we got a reasonable price and within their budget.
Yeah, that's legit. So did you have a specific process, Mick, to identify the problems? And like, can you shine a little light on that? You know, I know that you mentioned, you know, if they had problems and you could solve those for a reasonable price, that they would have a good shot at moving forward. But what was your process to identify what problems they had?
So I'm going to give everybody that's listening to this podcast the goods right here. I always ask 3 questions. Exactly. 3 questions when I first meet with the prospect. Tell me what you love about your current agency or your current agent, because I want to make sure that what you love about your current agent is something that I can do as well too, right? Like if Elliot comes out every morning and shines your boots for you and that's what you love, sorry, not going to happen, right? I'm not doing that. But then my follow-up question isn't tell me what you hate about your current agent. It's tell me what you wish your current agent did better, right? And that is what opens up the pain window. And you've got to be comfortable asking that question. So what do you love about your current agent? What do you wish your current agent did better? And just listen to that response. And then because I know my niche market, and this is why it's very important for producers to have niche markets and not be generalists. I always had something in my back pocket that would ask a question like, tell me how your current insurance program, and I don't ever say policy, tell me how your current insurance program protects you from, and then if you know you've got a great endorsement or a great add-on or a great inclusion, fill in the blank there, right? So tell me how your current insurance program protects you from slip and falls if you're a restaurant, right? Tell me how your current insurance program provides you with safety manuals and safety tips, whatever that is. Those were always my first three questions, and that's what gets into pain, right? And Elliot, I know you do this because we've had conversations, right? It's the questions that you ask to set up the response that you want that prospect to actually hear.
100%.
Right? And that's what it's about.
And doing it in a conversational way, so they don't feel interrogated, but you're gathering all the info that you want to try to get to understand if there is pain.
Absolutely. And once I ask a few questions, again, I'm never going to be the person that lies or exaggerates. 100% of the people didn't move through the process, right? But 60 to 65% did. And that's what I wanted to make sure of, because I didn't want to talk to everyone and then all of a sudden I close everyone, right? Like that becomes superficial at some point. So it's really the question answer period. You should have prospects that are in great situations, right? That maybe it doesn't make sense for them to switch to you. I was always authentic about that as well.
Totally. Well, sometimes that can build trust with the prospect too,
and a great referral source. Great referral source. I can't tell you how many accounts that I actually closed by not moving forward with the prospect, but having a great prospecting meeting, right? By being authentic. Like, hey, you are in a great situation. Everything that your current agent is doing is exactly what we do and how we do it. Right now, it doesn't make sense for you to move unless something happens in this relationship, and I will be there for you. And that's how I would end those situations.
Well, and there's even 100% agree. There's even sometimes when you do that, it's like the person will go, well, hang on, it's not that great, Mick.
Right.
Like, because they exaggerate, they feel like you're going to sell them something and nobody wants to be sold something. And when you tell them like, hey, but what you told me, it actually sounds like you're in a good spot. Sometimes that changes the dynamic, but it also, even if assuming that they are in a good spot, you don't waste time trying to shift that and trying to win a deal that you're never going to win, or that is going to be very unlikely to win. You are actually building value. You're building a relationship with that prospect, but you're not wasting your time or theirs to try to win a deal that's not going to happen.
Wholeheartedly.
Wholeheartedly.
And that's what Mike Taylor and I on my team teach with sales producers, and why you should have a sales process is so that you don't waste your time nor your prospect's time. Because Elliot, I don't know about you, Ryan, I don't know about you, I've never gotten paid on doing a quote, ever. Like, I've never gotten a check from the Hartford or Liberty Mutual by doing a quote for them. Now, you guys might be different than me, but
I wish, Mick. Sometimes I feel like we'd be making a lot more money, right?
Right. But that's always my mindset. Like, I'm not going in trying to do a quote. I'm not going in trying to complete AOR or BOR paperwork, right? I need to make sure that relevant pain exists and that there's a solution that I can solve. And I'm not going to waste my time trying to hope that I could do something at the end.
Totally. Hope has never been a great strategy. Copy, quote, pray has never been a great strategy.
There you go.
Right. Well, we talk about this a lot. So then how do you view, Mick, just an agency's value proposition then as a whole? So, we've discussed the sales process. When I go then to present, what did you rely on from a value proposition to differentiate yourself from the other or from your competition?
So it's funny you say that, because we literally had this conversation with a group of producers yesterday. So part of my closing strategy is to explain our customer journey, meaning I'm going to explain for you in detail what happens after you sign this application, meaning I'm going to explain to you over the next 90 days what's going to happen. Everything from a Google review or survey going out to you, that when your policy should arrive, your 30-day check-in call with the producer, the introduction to your VIP account executive, right? The quarterly drops that our agency does to all of our customers, right? Some of those drops are insurance specific. Some of those drops are about what we're doing in the community, but you're going to get 4 of those per year. And then I'm going to walk you through what your first renewal process is going to look like to a T, from 120 days out and why we do it at 120 days, to what happens 75 days out, to 45 days out, all the way down to 5 days past your renewal. I literally explained that. And to me, or not even to me, I had numerous customers tell us, wow, we've never known what to expect except at renewal. Like, you walked us through everything. And what that does for me is it allows me to communicate with that new customer how and when they like to be communicated. Because when I explain what that onboarding process and renewal process looks like to you at closing, I can now say, hey, do you want this email going to you or your office manager or the head of procurement? Like, who do you want to receive this email? Would you rather that be a text? Do you want to skip certain things? Like, they become a part of that onboarding process, and I never have to guess again, right? Because I can tell you as a consumer, the one thing that I hate is we all purchase something, right? And all of a sudden our phone blows up with text messages, random text messages all the time. When I don't know that those text messages or emails are coming, I unsubscribe. And when you need to send me something important, I don't get it.
Yep.
Right. My biggest pet peeve is that if you tell me what's going to happen, I know, and you can communicate with me how I want you to communicate with me. So we just did that. And I think our value was just that, because while every customer was unique because we had specific niche clients, our value was how we treated those individual customers. So, you know, we provided safety manuals and safety programs, but I would say that wasn't our value add, because there's 5,000 agencies that do the same thing. There's 5,000 agencies that have HR platforms and loss control platforms, right? Our value was explaining what it meant to be a customer to us and why you were important to us.
And you could do that very clearly because you didn't work on 1,000 different types of clients, right? You knew what your clients found valuable in your relationship.
Exactly.
Yeah. Which I
and
think
a lot of that ties. No, exactly. And a lot of that ties to the pain that you uncover as well, too, right? Like, you want to be specific to what their pain points are and explain how you're going to solve those throughout the customer journey.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and how many times, I'm guessing after, say, you started working with 20, 30 of those clients, how many times did you go into that first meeting and hear something that you hadn't heard before? Probably not very often. Yeah. You know,
Very
so
rare. Yep.
They all have the same issues and the same problems, you know, or very similar. And you can get really good at solving those problems, at anticipating those problems, and showing the client that you know what you're talking about because you've done this so many times before.
Absolutely.
Which I think, too, we're seeing a trend of that more so in the industry, where clients want somebody that they can be confident in, knows their business, you know, works with a lot of similar types of firms, is more of that specialist than just general.
Exactly. I mean, we are deep into the information age, as I like to call it, right? Like, as much as we research our prospects, they're researching us as well, too. Right.
Oh, yeah.
And we can't be naive to that. We can't be naive to the fact that they're not looking at our LinkedIn page or our website or are, you know, going on, you know, whatever it is, hunter.io or whatever platforms to make sure we are who we are.
Mm.
You know, so we've got to have that same mindset.
There's also an opportunity. Presents an opportunity that if we've got the right information out there, we can show those prospective clients that we know what we're doing.
Amen to that.
Mick, were you doing any?
Go ahead, Ryan.
Sorry, Elliot. Hit it.
No, good.
Were you doing anything else unique from a data perspective, Mick, just off the top of your head?
When you say data, what do you mean?
Using data to make better decisions from the business perspective, or turning that data around into marketing, or like, what was can you point to something where you were looking at data and saying, hey, this just created an unbelievable amount of value for me because it allowed us to do X.
Yeah, so there were a few things. The first thing, especially when we talk about identifying our ideal client, was I measured the service load to see trends, right? So, you know, we had a producer who did nothing but trucking and transportation. And it's really easy to get to 15,000 plus of revenue in the trucking space. But they look uniquely different because you can see trends. So meaning we then started going after furniture movers as a really good trend because we could see the servicing was less, right? They always had their information. And if you do anything in transportation, you know what I mean by having their information tight and legit. So we would begin to micro niche in our niche markets because we would use the data and intel. Because again, I was all about profitability and ROI with what we did. So that was something that we would look at is the service load within our niche to see if we needed to refine the niche or get out of a niche altogether, right? So I didn't do a ton of contractors for that reason. I would do new home construction builders, but not the contractors. That's a whole other story for itself. And then I would also look geographically to see where we really were competitive with our carriers. So, you know, because I wrote across the US, I could really hone in on specific regions with specific carriers. So looking at our competitiveness, I didn't really look at close ratio, right? But I did look at how competitive are we with certain carriers in certain areas so that I could then do a deeper market penetration in those areas. So those were the two that I would say I looked at the most. The third would probably be one call resolutions. So how many times on a service call can this be resolved with one call versus multiple touch points? Because again, to me, that was important as well.
Interesting. I like the name around it too. It's something you can rally the team around and, you know, create emphasis around when you name it like that.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
How were you tracking that, Mick? Did you have some fancy data software platform that, you know, you spent millions of dollars on to
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. So for those that don't know me, I am definitely much more of a CRM guy than an agency management system guy, right? Like, so my teams utilized CRMs much more than we were in the management system. The management system was where all the policy information went. But for working with our customers, getting the reporting and data that I needed as the CEO, the CRMs were much more set up for that, right? So, you know, we were on Salesforce before it was like this big thing. I forgot the name of the company, I'm going to be honest, but I'm going to say it was similar to a pipe drive. That became like our main source. And even now today with Premier Strategy Box, everything we do is with HubSpot. But I'm a CRM guy because natively the reports that you can get from a CRM are more structured around the customer relationship and the data points that are there. Like for whatever reason, management systems have all the data, but the reporting that we get, I don't want to say is crap, but it's not CEO type.
What? Mick, I would have never said the same thing. Nobody's ever heard me say that on this podcast.
Yeah, much more reporting out of CRM. If you are a business leader and a true business owner, not an agency owner, you should, again, I'm not saying walk away from AMS because in our industry, we need them and they're great at what they do for the policy. But if you really want analytics, CRMs are the way to go. And I don't care which one you use, just any CRM is the way to go.
Were you having just producers in the CRM or were you having account managers operating in the CRM?
Everybody in my team was in the CRM.
So then say I'm using the term account manager, but you know, a service person, let's say.
If you did anything with the customer, yep, absolutely. And I was not ashamed of that. Neither was my team because they understood the why, right? Mm-hmm. Like We could go on a lot of we could go on a lot of soapboxes with me today. But like, why is it a big deal that we have to be in 2 or 3 different places? Like, okay, when I go check my bank account, I don't check my bank account from ESPN.com, right? Like, there's not a link or integration from ESPN.com to my bank account. I have to go open up another tab, another browser to check my bank account, or go on my phone. Like, why is it such a huge deal to have 2 or 3 different systems open? Like, I don't understand why that's a big thing.
Well, I think most people weren't or aren't as intentional as you are about that. We don't, in our industry, again, a blanket statement, but we don't look at our agency management systems as the tool that they are. They're expensive, and so we're like, we've got to use it for everything, and but really we got to say, what's the agency management system good at, and where do we need, what else do we need, what other problems do we have? Like you said, what information did you need to see as the CEO? And then let's find a tool that can solve that for us. If done that way, like you said, the team understands the why. Yes, it might be an extra step to get information, looking the same in both or updated in both or whatever, but it's worth that step for the value that we get out of it because we've been intentional with these tools that we've brought into the company.
Absolutely. I could not have said it better. That is it.
Yeah. Well, you're right. We could go miles deep on some of that. And we didn't even hit
back on, Mick, when we're talking about developing the ideal tech stack, and you can just let everyone have it.
Let's do it. We're
doing a series early next year on the ideal tech stack in a firm. So that would be good because we didn't even hit, Mick, on what we talked about prior to the show on, getting into RevOps and stuff. So it does sound like there needs to be another Mick episode. I told you it was going to be epic.
Hey, I am ready, and we can do it whenever. I owe it to you anyway, so let's do it.
Well, this has been a masterclass on setting your agency, your producers up to grow and scale quickly, and the things you need to do. I mean, go back and pull out some of those pieces that Mick talked about. He laid out his 6-step sales process. He laid out how he identified an ideal client. Just go back, re-listen to those, make some notes, and you can have these systems built easily, tomorrow. So with that though, Mick, I think, we'll wrap up this session and get another one on the calendar. I appreciate, you making time. I know you're bouncing around a little bit today, and I appreciate getting it in. So it's been fun.
I appreciate you both having me. It's been a pleasure and honor, and I look forward to doing this again.
Thanks so much, Mick. Take care.
You got it, Ryan.
See you later.
Thank you for tuning in to Getting Past the Premium. We are excited to continue breaking down barriers and finding solutions together. If you would like to reach out regarding anything you heard in today's episode, find links and contact info in the description. Until next time, have a great day, and let's continue getting past the premium.